Hey guys, and welcome back. It's Audacious Extreme here, and in today's video, I'm going to be covering the ultimate guide on how to tune your car to shave that time right off of your lap times. Now, as you can see here, I've been able to get world rank 401 for A-class cars on Lime Rock Full. So, with these tuning strategies, I definitely think that you'll be able to shave a bunch of time off of your best laps. So, if this video is going to help you guys out, please be sure to smash that like button and definitely consider subscribing because I'm going to be making a ton more guides on this game. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, once you come into any race, or even into the menu still, just go down to tune your car, and the first thing that's going to pop up is going to be your tire pressure. Now, changing your tire pressure is pretty much going to affect the amount of contact area that the tire has with the road, and that is going to affect the amount of grip that you have. This is also going to, on the front tires, affect your steering responsiveness. Now, if you have too much pressure, you're not going to have enough grip, but you're going to be able to turn very easily. Now, if you lower it too much, you're not going to be able to turn as well, but obviously in return, you're going to have a ton of grip. So pretty much you need to find a good balance with that. Especially for the front tires, typically you want to run a little bit higher pressure, as you can see with my front and rear here. Now, in this case, I am using more of like a race car, so that's why my pressures are naturally set a little bit lower. But typically, you're going to want to have your front tires set somewhere in the 30s and your rear somewhere around the high 20s or the low 30s as well. So the next thing we get to is the gearing. Now, your final gear drive is going to actually have quite a big difference on everything. This is going to affect your acceleration and your top speed, and it's going to pretty much be the ratio between your acceleration and the speed of the car. So pretty much, I like to put this kind of in the middle. Now, where this was put originally was kind of somewhere around here. So I moved it down a little bit towards speed, and what I did from there was actually adjust my gears so that way I am pretty much in the highest RPM like band and power ratio for my transmission for each gear. So that way I have taken a little bit of time and actually tested each specific gear to make sure that this is pretty much the fastest that the car is going to accelerate. And specifically for this track, I have the thing geared so that way I will be able to hit the amount, like pretty much the fastest speed around corners without having to switch gears in the middle and being a pain in the butt, which actually will help save you a lot of lap time. The next thing being the alignment. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the camber. Now, your front end is always going to have more camber than the rear. Naturally, this is due to the front wheels are going to be the ones that turn. And now as you take a turn, your wheel is going to slightly pivot, and as this happens, your negative camber on the front wheels, that offset, is going to help keep as much contact for that tire on the pavement as possible. So as you're driving, you want to adjust this a little bit here and there to see what gives you the most grip as you have your steering wheel fully cranked as you're taking a turn, and this is going to help your cornering grip substantially. You want to try and find that sweet spot. For my car, this is around negative 1.6 degrees. I would start somewhere around here with your car and just kind of try a little bit different until you find what works best for you. For the rear, a lot of times it might start at a little bit higher than this, but I like to keep mine around 0.8 or maybe even go a little bit lower if I'm in a rear-wheel drive car, just because this kind of helps you with better grip, although you do want to still have some for while you are taking corners as well. The next thing, moving on to the toe, I like to run just a tiny bit toe out. This kind of just helps to bring the car in a straight line once I am done with my corner, and I feel like this just kind of helps just work everything together, and for me, that's just what I like to run. For the rear, I kind of do the same, but just opposite in the I do negative 0.1, and for me this just kind of works. I wouldn't really adjust this much more than this, except maybe 0.2, 0.3. See what works best for you, but I would try to keep that pretty much within the stock ranges. Now the front caster angle, this goes pretty much in correlation with the camber. Now for me, it starts at 5 degrees. I increase this a little bit, but changing this too much is going to have a massive effect on your camber. But once again, this is going to kind of affect your cornering and how much tire is actually sitting on the ground while you're taking a corner. So I increased this 0.2 degrees. I would consider doing the same yourself, increasing it a little bit or maybe decreasing it a little bit, and just trying a little bit here and there just to see what helps with you, but definitely do not change this too much because that's going to have a massive effect on your camber. Moving on to the anti-roll bars. So with the anti-roll bars, I typically like to run my fronts softer than the rear, and on this car specifically, it has a lot of understeer, so I like to make mine a little bit softer in the front because that definitely helps a little bit, and a little bit higher in the rear than stock because that genuinely definitely does help. I always typically find myself running the rear a lot stiffer and the front softer, but just kind of use this as a baseline and once again just move it around a little bit and see what works for you. But also this is going to also have another effect while you're turning, so just keep that in mind as well. Next on to the springs. Now your springs are a little bit more difficult to tune, and that is because they are going to be pretty much based off of your weight of the vehicle and also is relative to where your engine is placed in the car. So depending on where your engine is placed, you might want to have a little bit stiffer suspension in the front or the rear, depending obviously. And this is due to it, the car is going to need to be supporting that engine, and as you're going over bumps, the engine is going to weigh more and it's going to weigh that part of the car down, and if it's not, your car is also going to be bottoming out. Now we're going to quickly jump down to ride height because this goes right in with the springs, and if your springs are not stiff enough, then your car is going to bottom out, and this is going to cause lots of handling issues and you're going to be losing speed. So you really need to find the kind of soft spot where your springs are as soft as possible, but you're still not bottoming out. Now, one more thing to add is that as you have a little bit more stiffness in the front, that will help you with your front grip because that will help you with your cornering, and it just with the weight transfer of the car, that's going to help you be able to enter that corner at a faster speed without having as many like difficulties. Alright, so next up is the dampening, and the first thing is going to be the bump stiffness. And this, you are always going to want to only be around 60 to 70% of your rebound stiffness. Now, what the bump stiffness does is it pretty much controls how quickly your car's suspension is going to compress when you hit a bump or in the road or like a rumble strip or something like that. And this is definitely going to affect how your car is going to handle when it hits those bumps and how harsh it's going to be. So you want to have the front end a little bit softer from what I've noticed, just because that's going to allow you to be able to just hit that bump and just get back right back to it without losing stability or any control or less speed. Now the rear, you're able to keep a little bit stiffer because you're not hitting the bumps first, and that's not how you're turning. So you want to keep that a little bit stiffer. But now, like I mentioned before, you want your bump stiffness to only be 60 to 70% of your rebound stiffness. And this is because your rebound stiffness is how quickly your car's suspension is going to get back to its original state after hitting a bump. And now this is very important because this is going to be like kind of how bouncy the car is as it's going over the track. Now as you hit a bump, the car, if it's too stiff, is going to almost bounce up off the track, and you're going to lose a lot of your control. Now if it's too soft, you're going to basically bottom out, like I said before with the suspension, and you're also going to lose a ton of control. So you really need to find that nice happy medium, which like I said is 60 to 70% of your bump stiffness. Like I haven't mentioned yet, this is very near the stock settings. So there's not really too much you have to change here, although you really just want to make sure that everything is working properly and you're not bottoming out on whatever track that you're trying to run. Next up to suspension geometry. With the roll center height, you want to have the higher in the front to make the car more responsive in turns, and typically a little bit lower in the rear, so that way that can help you with more traction as you're coming out of turns. So I have mine a little bit higher in the front than it was stock, and just a little bit lower in the rear. And for me, this genuinely dramatically helped a lot by keeping like my center of gravity pretty much as I'm going through turns just perfect, and it helped a lot with my grip. I would definitely recommend playing around with these and seeing what works best for you. Alright, and lastly we have the anti-geometry percent. This is going to affect dramatically how the car will lean and squat under heavy acceleration and braking. Now in the front, this will allow the car to feel stiffer or softer when you're braking or hitting the gas, you know, as you're coming up to a turn or first taking off or whatever. Now, this is going to stiffen up the car a lot and genuinely increase your times quite a bit just by stiffening up the car in a way that honestly I didn't think it needed. But doing this a little bit more than stock, putting it a little bit higher in the front, tends to help a lot. And for the squat in the rear, I lowered it a little bit more than it was for stock, and that actually helped quite a bit. So I would take a look for this for yourself as well and see what works best for your car. Next up is the aero. And you're going to have the front and rear bumper, which unfortunately do require the racing front or rear bumper for whichever one you'd like to purchase. But these are going to increase your front and rear downforce. Now, increasing the downforce is going to have quite a big effect on how much grip your car has and how much air is being basically pushed down on the car as you're driving. Now, with the car stock, you're not able to adjust this, but like I said, with the racing stuff, you are. Now, I would really recommend only adjusting these in pairs, but obviously if you can't, that's okay too. For this car, I increased both of mine towards cornering about 10 pounds, I believe, just to help increase my grip a little bit. But if you increase it too much, you will start to reduce your acceleration and your top speed. So you really want to find a happy medium where you're getting a little bit more grip, but not too much to the point that it's slowing you down. So on to the next thing with the brakes. With the brake balance, obviously, as everybody knows, your front brakes are the ones that really do everything. Although, in this game, it kind of doesn't really work like your average car would, and the brakes kind of seem to work like they're 50 and 50, like legitimately the brakes are the exact same. Like you don't have bigger calipers in the front, they're the exact same as the rear. So pretty much I have put this to 52% because I found if I do any more toward the front, they just lock up and you immediately just spin out, and it doesn't help you any. So I keep this at 52, and this seems to be a little bit better. And same with the braking force, I increased it 2%. That gives you basically 102% brakes. But once again, if you hit the brakes too hard, you're going to end up locking them up, and you're going to end up braking slower. So you kind of want to play with that and don't push it too much. You got to kind of find the happy medium. Next on to the differential. For this car, I don't have a differential unlocked at the moment because I'm keeping this car in A class. But the differential pretty much allows the tires to move at different rates. Now, you're always going to have your acceleration at a little bit higher point than the deceleration, mainly due to you're not going to want your wheels spinning at the same rate. Now, if you want, you could totally lock the diff and put your acceleration and deceleration at high, and that means that you're going to have both wheels spinning at the same rate, but that's not really going to be ideal for the most grip. You really are going to want to have this near the stock ratio, although you can increase or decrease a little bit depending on if you want your wheels to spin at different rates than each other. It really varies, especially with front wheel drive to rear wheel drive cars. I'm probably going to be making another video separately on just the differential settings in the future, so stay tuned for that. Now onto the steering wheel settings. This is kind of just an extra one that they threw in, but this is going to be so you can adjust your force feedback and your steering lock range. Now if this is for like a drift car, for example, or whatever pretty much, so that way you can adjust this stuff for your car specifically rather than for the entire game. This is actually kind of a cool feature, but honestly I've never messed with it, but feel totally free to adjust these to your liking. Now once you're all done, all you got to do is apply. Your tune's going to be all set, and you can go into your race and have fun. Now, I hope this video helped you guys out so much, and if it did, please be sure to smash that like button, and like I said before, definitely get subscribed because I'm going to be making a ton more Forza guides in the future. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.